calling on the You Only podcast fans. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning back in. We're going to be talking about our boy Mahatma Gandhi again. I love this guy. I follow a lot of his learnings and teachings and readings that he's done. You know, he was born to a Hindu family in coastal Gujarat, India, and trained in the law of the Inner Temple, London, and was called to the bar at the age of 22 in June of 1891. After 2 uncertain years in India where he was unable to start a successful law practice, he was down and out, feeling alone, said, you know what, I'm going to kick rocks out of India. He moved to South Africa in 1893 to represent an Indian merchant in a lawsuit. He went on to live in South Africa for more than 21 years. He raised a family and first employed nonviolent resistance in a campaign for civil rights in 1915 at age 45. And I think that's what we need all around the world right now with so much resistance and so much turmoil going on out there. I pray for all them people in the Jewish community. I pray for all those people in the Islamic community. Can we please, us Christians, Muslims, Jews, get together? It's a month of peace here, people. We need to love each other. We need to grow together. And I know you're listening. And I know each and every one of you have a heart and soul and a mind. And we need to put our differences away and stop being so upset and stop not stop realizing, but realize that we need inner peace, love, and joy during a season of turmoil. Mahatma Gandhi assumed leadership of the Indian Nation Congress in 1921. Gandhi led a nationwide campaign for easing poverty and expanding women's rights, building religious and ethnic amity, and ending untouchability, which untouchability is a form of social institution that legitimizes and enforces practices that are discriminatory, and humiliating, and exploitive against people belonging to certain social groups, everybody. And thank you for listening to the You Only podcast again, fans. This means a lot to me, and today I'm going to be sharing a wonderful read with you by this gentleman. And Mahatma Gandhi actually is known for a guide to health, and that's what we're going to be going over. That's the book of the day. Mahatma Gandhi is a wonderful guy. If you don't know much about him, get out there and check it out, and for more than 20 years past, I've been pretty much paying special attention to the question of health. While in England, I had to make my own arrangements for food and drink, and can say, therefore, that my experience is quite reliable. I have arrived to certain definite conclusions from the experience, and I now set them down for the benefit of my readers. And today, I hope you enjoy A Guide to Health by Mahatma Gandhi, but I want to share with you guys some information that I've come across that I think is really vital to the podcast, and that's a group of vegetables that everybody eats and loves at restaurants, at home, everywhere we eat these terrible foods, and we don't even know they're terrible because they're just so delicious. And this is the nightshade family. In many places in the world, nightshade was considered a poisonous. Think about it, nightshade. Doesn't it sound dark? And these plants, here's just some of them, are goji berries, which they're considered to be a superfood. In reality, they have glycoalkaloids and lectins in them. And if you want to get rid of lectins, you have to pretty much cook them. You got to get them up to temperature. And there's eggplants and tomatoes, which everybody loves tomatoes, potatoes, and green peppers. And it's funny because they label potatoes as a nightshade, but sweet potatoes is not in the nightshade family. And sweet potatoes actually contain vitamin B6, which turn on serotonin. And serotonin makes you feel good. It boosts your energy. And it's awesome that they're not in the nightshade family. But peppers, like green peppers, you have green peppers in all kinds of sides. They put it on top of steaks. They, chicken, fajitas. They stuff bell peppers, Peppers have what's called a type of capsaicin in them, which capsaicin is used to help relieve a certain type of pain called neuralgia, or shooting or burning pain in the nerves. It's also used for muscle aches, sprains, and rheumatoid arthritis. So it would be hard not to eat peppers, and that's all the peppers. That's the hot peppers and the sweet peppers, like the green bell pepper, the red pepper, but it includes jalapeno peppers, ghost peppers, Carolina Reapers, stuff like that, because those hold lectins in them and glycoalkaloids, which glycoalkaloids are a poison really in plants, and these cause us to blow up and have inflammation, and it's neurotoxins. And in our other podcasts we've talked about neurochemical transmission, so you can only imagine what neurotoxins the nightshade family produces in your brain, and it slows down transmission of your cells, and it slows down division of white and red blood cells and stuff like that. So it causes inflammation in your joints, irritable bowel syndrome, itching and burning in your intestines. That's the capsaicin and other agents of the glycoalkaloids or the lectins. And lectins are in beans, peanuts, quinoa, and it's made by every plant. But if you want to get rid of lectins, there's an easy way to do it, and that's by soaking them, boiling them, heating them, cooking them. That destroys the lectin, and because once you heat it to a certain point, those lectin molecules break down, which that's gluten as well. Gluten's a lectin. So that brings us to something I want to talk about that's in all of these plants I'm telling you about as well, and that's nicotine. Not a lot of people know that about the nicotine family vegetables, which is nightshades. And nicotine enhances the circulatory effect of adenosine. And we just learned about adenosine in our last podcast. Thank you to the doctor that walked us through that, because adenosine receptors are almost the same molecular structure as caffeine, and then the byproduct of caffeine is adenosine, and that's what makes you sleepy. Thank you for tuning in to the You Only podcast, and there's more to dive into about nicotine. A randomized double-blind and placebo-controlled study was performed in 10 healthy volunteers to evaluate a possible interaction between adenosine and nicotine in human beings. The infusion of adenosine alone, 0.07 milligrams, induced an increase in heart rate of 4.7 beats per minute versus 0.2 beats per minute after placebo administration. The infusion of adenosine alone increased a decrease in finger skin temperature compared with placebo administration. When compared with baseline values, nicotine gum chewing increased systolic and diastolic blood pressures by 6.2 and 7, and that's millimeters of mercury. Heart rate by 5.5 beats, and plasma adrenaline levels to 0.03. See, and nicotine is actually a nootropic. And if it is cultivated right in your body, which all these vegetables that I had just mentioned, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, an eggplant is in the nicotine family. And like I said, you'd have to eat 20 of them to equal one cigarette, or get any, and I'm sure hundreds to get to toxic levels. And thank you guys for listening to the You Only podcast. And I want to share something with you by Dr. Andrew Huberman. Thank you.
What's the verdict on cigarettes? Are they bad for real?
Okay. Nicotine, but here's what's crazy. Nicotine is neuroprotective. Nicotine is great for us. Not that everyone should take it, but it increases acetylcholine and dopamine and epinephrine, leads to heightened focus, improved memory, and can offset neurodegeneration and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Yes.
Okay. Can we basically have this blurb that says Professor Huberman says smoking cigarettes is good for you?
No, because smoking cigarettes is bad because it's carcinogenic.
Oh.
There are about 1,000 carcinogens in cigarettes. Vaping is bad because of the chemicals that you're inhaling with it. dipping and snuffing. Not that the snuffing is just weird. Does anyone really shove tobacco up their nose? I mean, that's
nose.
Yeah, that's snuffing. They'll put tobacco. Yeah. And rape, which is, if you look at rape, R-A-P, like people will put the tobacco up their nose.
What?
Oh,
Who
yeah.
puts it up their fucking nose?
Mucus membranes, right? Mucus membranes. As far as I know, no one does, tobacco suppositories. But
thank you for not doing tobacco suppositories, audience members. That was Andrew Huberman. You can check him out on TikTok. He's on YouTube. He's a very intelligent guy, and he knows a lot about nicotine, and that guy actually supports nicotine as a nootropic because it gives you mega focus, it gives you mental clarity, it's calming, and I'm assuming in like micro doses it's good for you because everybody eats these vegetables and gets it in their systems anyways, and they don't even know it. It's just that there was so much emphasis put on cigarettes causing lung cancer and different types of cancers that we learned about the effects of nicotine and what it does and how addictive it can be for our dopamine receptors in our bodies. And thank you again for listening to the You Only podcast. And hopefully you enjoy Mahatma Gandhi, A Guide to Health. And this is December here at the You Only podcast, and our awareness this month is seasonal awareness depression, or SAD. And if you feel down and out when the leaves are falling off the trees, the snow starts falling, Santa Claus starts coming to town, you get all anxious and worried because the holidays are here, you're eating too much, you're not exercising enough, you're not checking in on your mental health, you're doing all these different kinds of things and putting your body through so many different stresses. We all go through some type of little depressions here and there in life, but Seasonal Awareness Depression Month here at the Only You podcast is important because I suffer from this, and sometimes I get the winter blues in the middle of February when the wind's twirling, the snow's blowing, and it's a weird time. It's like a disconnect, and it sucks. And hopefully you can find ways to cope with this. If you head out there to Google seasonal awareness depression, you'll learn a lot more about it. They got lights you can buy on Amazon they can turn on, and the light gives you vitamin D3 that you may be depleted of because you're not getting enough sunlight during the winter months. There are many different types of nootropics that you could take to help boost your mood and get you up and going for another great week. Thank you again for listening to the You Only podcast. You guys, I love you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for following me. And please do keep sharing me. The audience is growing little by little, and I do appreciate it. I'm trying to get more recordings out there to you, but I have a life too, and sometimes things get in the way, especially during the holidays. So thank you again for listening, and thank you for being aware of seasonal depression, and hopefully you enjoy A Guide to Health by Mahatma Gandhi. A Guide to Health by Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you guys for listening, and this is the meaning of health. Ordinarily, that man is considered healthy who eats well and moves about and does not resort to a doctor. But a little thought will convince us that this idea is wrong. There are many cases of men being diseased in spite of their eating well and freely moving about. They are under the delusion that they are healthy simply because they are too indifferent to think about the matter. In fact, perfectly healthy men hardly exist anywhere over the whole wide world. As has been well said, only that man can be said to be really healthy who has a sound mind and a sound body. The relation between the body and the mind is so intimate that if neither of them got out of order, the whole system would suffer. Let us take the analogy of the rose flower. Its color stands to its fragrance in the same way as the body to the mind or the soul. No one regards an artificial paper flower as a sufficient substitute for the natural flower, for the obvious reason that the fragrance which forms the essence of the flower cannot be reproduced. So, too, we instinctively honored the man of a pure mind and a noble character in a preference to the man who is merely physically strong. Of no man whose character is not pure can be said to be really healthy. The body which contains a diseased mind can never be anything but diseased. Hence it follows that a pure character is the foundation of health in the real sense of the term. And we may say that all evil thoughts and evil passions are but different forms of disease. Thus considered, we may consider that man alone is perfectly healthy whose body is well formed, whose teeth as well as eyes and ears are in good condition, whose nose is free from dirty matter, whose skin excludes perspiration freely and without any bad smell, whose mouth is also free of bad smells, whose hands and legs perform their duty properly, who is neither too fat nor too thin, and whose mind and senses are constantly under his control. As has already been said, it is very hard to gain such health, but it is harder still to retain it. When once it has been acquired, the chief reason why we are not truly healthy is that our parents were not. An eminent writer has said that if the parents are in perfectly good condition, their children would certainly be superior to them in all respects. A perfectly healthy man has no reason to fear death. Our terrible fear of death shows that we are far from being so healthy. It is, however, the clear duty of all of us to strive for perfect health. We will therefore proceed to consider the following pages how such health can be attained, and how, when attained, it can also be retained forever. The human body. The world is compounded of the 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether. So, too, is our body. It is a sort of miniature world, hence the body stands in need of all the elements in due proportion: pure earth, pure water, pure fire or sunlight, pure air, open space. When any one of these fails short or falls short of its due proportion, illness is caused in the body, or the body becomes acidized. It has too much acid in it, and that's when you know you have sickness in your body. You got to drink lots of water or milk to get it back to a base level or alkalized. The body is made up of skin and bone, as well as flesh and blood. The bone constitutes the framework of the body, but for them, we could not stand erect and move about. They protect the softer parts of the body. Thus, the skull gives us protection to the brain, while the ribs protect the heart and the lungs. Doctors have counted 238 bones in the human body. The outside of the bone is hard, but the inside is soft and hollow. Where there is a joint between 2 bones, there is a coating of marrow, which may be regarded as a soft bone. The teeth, too, are to be counted among the bones. When we feel the flesh of some points, we find to be tough and elastic. This part of the flesh is known as the muscle. It is the muscles that enable us to fold and unfold our arms, to move our jaws, and to close our eyes. It is the means of the muscles, again, in our organs and perception, do their work. It is beyond the province of this book to give detailed account of structure of the body, nor has the present writer enough knowledge to give such an account. We will therefore content ourselves with just as much information as is essential for our present purpose. The most important portion of the body is the stomach. Remember another podcast I've told you, the stomach is like the second mind. So that's why you always hear, trust your gut instinct, because every person of higher intelligence knows how to read their gut and understand it and be at one with knowing when you're upon somebody and they make you feel something in your stomach, things ain't right. Listen to that gut instinct and get out of there. Air. Of the three things that are indispensable for the sustenance of man, namely air, water, and food, the first is the most important. Hence is that God has created it in such large quantities as to make it available to all of us for nothing. Modern civilization, however, has rendered even fresh air somewhat costly, for in order to breathe fresh air, we have to go out of towns, and this means expense. The residents of Bombay, for instance, distinctly improve in health in their air of Matherian, or still better of the Malabar Hills, but they cannot go to these places without money. Hence, in these days, it would be hardly true to say that we get fresh air as we used to in the old days. But whether fresh air is available or not, it is undeniable that we cannot get on without it. We have already seen that the blood circulates over the body, returns to the lungs, and the being purified starts on its round again. We breathe out the impure air and take in oxygen from outside, which purifies the blood. The processes of inspiration and expiration goes on forever, and on it depends man's life. When drowned in water, we die, because when we are unable to let out our impure air in the body and take in pure air from outside, the divers go down into the water in what is known as a diving bell, and they take in fresh air through a tube which leads to the top. Hence it is that they are able to remain underwater for a long time. It has been ascertained by experts that no man can live without air for as long as 5 minutes. We often hear of death of little children when they are held so close to the bosom by ignorant mothers as to take it impossible for them to breathe. We should all be as much against the breathing of impure air as we are against the drinking of dirty water and the eating of dirty food. But the air we breathe is, as a rule, far more impure than the water we drink or the food we eat. We are all worshippers of concrete objects. Those things that can be seen and felt are regarded as, by us, of far greater importance than those which are invisible and intangible. Since air belongs to the latter class of objects, we fail to realize the evil wrought by the impure air that we breathe. We could think twice before eating the lees of another man's food or drinking out of a cup polluted by another man's lips. Even those who have not the least sense of shame or repugnance would never eat another man's vomit or drink the water which has been spat out by him. Now we are able to understand why so many men and women should be weak and diseased. There can be absolutely no doubt that impure air is the root cause of disease in 99 cases of every 100. It follows that the best way to avoid disease is to live and work in the open air. No doctor can compete with fresh air in this matter. Consumption is caused by the decay of the lungs due to inhaling of impure air. Just as a steam engine, which is filled with bad coal, gets out of order. Hence, doctors say that the easiest and the most effective treatment for a consumptive patient is to keep him in fresh air for all of 24 hours in the day. It is, of course, essential to know how we can keep the air pure. In fact, every child should be taught the value of fresh air as soon as it is able to understand anything. And if my readers would take the trouble to learn the simple facts about the air and would put their knowledge into practice while teaching their children also to do the same, I shall feel immensely gratified. Our latrines are perhaps most responsible for rendering the air impure. Very few people realize the serious harm done by dirty latrines. Even dogs and cats make their own claws something like a pit wherein to deposit their feces and then cover it up with some earth. There are no lavatories of the modern approved types. We should also do likewise. There should be kept ashes or dry earth in a tin can or an earthen vessel inside the latrine, and whoever goes into the latrine should, on coming out, cover the feces well with the ash or the earth. Kind of interesting, right, fan members? See, this is important because this ties into inhalation of nicotine, because there's no good way to intake nicotine but through what we eat. But then what we eat, they say, has all these different poisons like glycoalkaloids and lectins that attach to our intestine walls and cause all kinds of stuff like diverticulosis. And diverticulosis is like you can't eat any type of seeds because the seeds get stuck in the little bubbles that are in your intestine, because your intestine ain't a straight line. It's like little circles connected together that help with digestion. And thank you guys for listening to the You Only podcast, and hopefully you've enjoyed listening to Mahatma Gandhi's A Guide to Health. And after learning how much to inhale, the air and how it should be clean, how does that make you guys feel about your own homes? Because they say that our homes that's where the most dirtiest of air is, and that's why it's important to have a kind of air system in your home that purifies your air. Or get a air scrubber. It's a UV light that they install in your air handler, and it kills all kinds of different stuff, and it can kill smells too. It can zap smells out of the air of like you frying fish, and if you flip on the fan motor and it pulls the air over the UV light or the air scrubber, it will return it back out into the atmosphere of like the kitchen with no smell of fish when you're cooking it. Some of those air scrubbers are really powerful. And thank you guys again for listening, and thank you for following me. Thank you for sharing me. I'm so grateful. This is our 3rd season, and hopefully you're enjoying the content I'm putting out. I'm trying to teach you guys some stuff as I'm learning it too, that I find interesting. And today I really wanted you to learn about glycoalkaloids, the nightshade family, goji berries, eggplants, tomatoes, potatoes, green peppers, because these all contain nicotine, which we've always learned that nicotine, smoking cigarettes, is terrible for you. But then again, nicotine's a nootropic. You'll have to get over to the public domain and check out A Guide to Health by Mahatma Gandhi. And that was our book today. Thank you guys for following me, and thank you for sharing me. This podcast is dependent upon you sharing me with your friends and listening. I'm not the greatest, but I try to be everything you need me to be. And if you share your thoughts and feelings with me, that'd be even better. And you can do that at the Only You Podcast 2022 at gmail.com. Some of you have reached out. We got lots of fan members who are involved in this podcast. I'm grateful for every single one of you. And so are all the other fan members that tune in every single week. And sometimes I might skip a week here and there just for the fact that I do have other things going on, just as you do too. We all have lives, but I try to come back to the podcast and give you great information that I've read about and that I've learned about. And hopefully it'll give you something to research and learn about too, because there's so many different aspects of learning. Like knowing the nightshade family and plants, that could be somebody's go-to for their diet. Maybe you're struggling through the holidays with food. I know I've eaten way too much food this year. I promised I wasn't doing that at Christmas time. But I do feel that it was important to learn about lectins and glycoalkaloids, because those are types of poisons that are in goji berries, eggplants, tomatoes, potatoes, green peppers, red peppers, jalapenos. Or the capsaicin is a glycoalkaloid, and it irritates our intestines and makes it itch and burn and comes out the rear end not feeling so great. Those are neurotoxins, and those slow down neurochemical transmission. And this podcast is about sharing great books that might help somebody evolve and grow and learn things about their health or their body or their mind. This podcast has really gotten off the ground. I'm grateful for every single one of you, and it's dependent upon you sharing me and giving me like 5-star reviews at Spotify for this podcast to be successful. And it is one of the top 10 podcasts for almost 5,000 Spotify listeners. I am so grateful. I was number 15 in Egypt and the podcast polls over there of all podcasts. So that means a lot to me. I put a lot into this, and I'm glad you're getting a lot out of it. So hopefully you'll check out my polls, and hopefully you'll get involved, and maybe we can reach one, teach one, and maybe you can teach me something, and maybe you have something you want to share. And if you do, email me and we can get some audio recordings from you, and we can put you live, and so you can maybe come back and get some help from listening to yourself. Because sometimes when we record ourselves, we actually heal from hearing ourselves tell ourselves what was going on, or what was wrong, or what was great and what was good, and what we remember that made us really drive and dig in to get to where we are, and the success story behind the situation and all the things that we go through in life. And we all have each other to lean on. And this is a podcast for leaning on. You only are in charge of your getting better, and you only can be the one to stand in the way of adversity when it attacks. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for sharing me. And I know lots of you know me, and some of you have met me and think I'm silly and funny and great. And I'm just a person, and I'm living, and I'm trying to change one day at a time. I want to be a 1% better every single day over 365 days, because if I change 1%, that means that I'm doing something right. And I feel like if you do the same, I think you'll do just as well as I've been doing. And I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for this year. It really got turned around, and I'm just grateful for all you guys. And I'm thankful that you tune into me and listen to me. And it feels good to be a part of something, you guys. And thanks again for listening, and thanks for reaching out and being involved. Till next time, your boy Lo Jackson. You only.